Vet sees dog's ultrasound and passes out. Once again, the vet looked over the results. She'd gone over them countless times before. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. She had been a vet for a long time, and in all of her years, she'd never seen anything like this before. But the ultrasound was a confirmation that this was real. So many questions were flooding her mind, but she couldn't pay them much attention at the time. This dog needed her attention immediately. Chris and Mary Asa had gone to countless animal shelters, trying to find the perfect pup to adopt. They knew that the perfect match was out there somewhere, but they were finding the search quite difficult. Mary Asa promised Chris that they would only adopt one dog, but when she first laid eyes on the pregnant dog with the mournful look on her face, she knew what she had to do. As soon as the dog saw the couple, she ran over and began licking their hands, happily wagging her tail. Her belly was massive, she was pregnant, and Mary Asa knew she needed a good, loving home where she could have her babies. Chris and Mary Asa both knew that this was the dog they were meant to adopt, but they had no idea what was coming their way. Everything was about to change. But soon enough, the couple would learn that being pregnant at the shelter wasn't the only tragic part of the dog's life. She was a pit bull, and her name was Story. Her previous owner was someone who ran a backyard breeding business. When her previous owner learned how expensive her pups would be to take care of, they decided to drop her at the shelter. Mary Asa cried when she heard the tragic story. Story deserved better. They knew that they had to give Story a proper home with a lot of love and affection. It was what she deserved considering her past. The shelter was no place for a dog this deep into her pregnancy. They had to help her. They adopted her on the spot, desperate to give her the life she deserved. But everything changed when they decided to take her to the vet. What made their decision even easier was the fact that Chris and Mary Asa shared a love for pit bulls. When they were younger, they saved several other pit bulls from sticky situations. In case you were wondering, they currently have no less than 10 pit bulls of their own. You can see 8 of them in this photo. Chris and Mary Asa knew the importance of having a good bed for their pets. But with so many dogs, space became an issue for the couple. This is why Chris built a 7 feet wide and 14 feet long megabed for the dogs. He said in an interview with Today, "At nighttime, all of the dogs want to sleep on the bed, and sometimes it becomes too cluttered, and we end up being pushed off of the bed or sleeping on the couch. So we built the megabed." As lovers of the pit bull breed, the pair are aware that they are often misunderstood. All over the world, laws are put in place regarding the ownership of pit bulls. It is illegal to own them in many states. Although the couple had a lot of experience with the breed, even they were unprepared for what was about to unfold. Mary Asa admitted in an interview that she's broken up with previous partners because they never understood her obsession with the breed, nor did they support it. Clearly, these dogs mean more to Mary Asa than you might think. When she met Chris, it became clear that he not only understood and supported her dream, he actually shared it with her. Because of their love for each other and the specific dog breed, they knew they were the perfect match. Being together meant that their passion for dogs only began increasing as time went on. They adored pit bulls, so it might seem strange that they'd think twice. So why did they? Animal shelters worldwide have to deal with more than insufficient resources, however. Naturally, every shelter dreams of being able to care for all the animals they take in, but reality isn't that kind. When Chris and Mary Asa visited Pibbles and More Animal Rescue, they were stunned by how many pit bulls there were. They had no idea that one such pit bull was about to change their lives forever. Sadly, pit bulls have a terribly unkind reputation. Due to their stocky build and large heads, many consider them much more aggressive than they in fact are. This, coupled with the strict laws about owning pit bulls, is one of the reasons why so many end up in the shelters. The stigma surrounding these dogs was nothing new to the couple. They knew the truth about these dogs. As a result, they had adopted numerous pit bulls in the past as their means and resources allowed. They had never seen anything in their own dogs to warrant their bad reputation. They could never have expected what fate had in store. Despite what many believe, studies have found no proof to support the bad reputation. As with any other breed, it all comes down to how the animal was treated. Pit bulls are no more predisposed to being aggressive than, say, a Labrador. However, Story was about to change everything they thought they knew and understood about pit bulls. While filling out the forms to adopt Story, the staff told the couple that she was very close to giving birth. In fact, she was actually overdue already. No one could explain why she hadn't given birth yet, despite how clearly she was ready to. It was a complicated situation that no one really understood. Knowing how serious this situation could be, the couple knew that they might be forced into a literal life or death choice for the dog and her unborn puppies. It was a big decision, and the couple knew that they couldn't rush it. However, there wasn't really any time to do so. The stakes also made it worse. Even though time was of the essence, the couple knew that they had to discuss things for a moment. They couldn't rush in blindly, but they also couldn't stand idly by. While they were discussing things, Story did something that made the decision for them. She quietly walked over to the couple and placed her head on Mariasa's knee and looked mournfully at her. As happy as she was to bring Story home, Mariasa knew things were very complicated. It not only meant adding one more member to their family. It potentially meant more. As much difficulty as Mariasa was having with the situation, news lay around the corner. News that changed things even more. Even though they were aware that keeping Story would mean taking care of an additional 10 dogs, they did not want the pregnant dog mama to be at the shelter for longer than she needs to be. Together, they made the decision. Mariasa wanted to help Story and give her a safe space to deliver the pups. The couple started to talk about it and weighed the pros and cons of bringing home Story. Without a doubt, it was not a practical idea. However, Chris suggested something that made perfect sense for the situation at hand. It sure seemed like their best bet, both for their family and for Story and the pups. He suggested that they would foster Story and her puppies. However, this was only going to be temporary, as the animal rescue team would then look for their forever homes. This was a good idea, since they could not afford to keep more pets with their 8 other dogs. The suggestion was a brilliant one, but the problems did not end there. They still had to find out what was wrong with the pregnancy. What was the reason Story had not yet given birth, even though she was close to bursting? This was the next thing they had to tackle. They needed to give the pregnancy the attention it deserved. This was the first time they have ever encountered anything like this. There must be some reason Story was unable or unwilling to give birth to the babies. Chris and Mariasa had been worrying about it, so they decided to go to the internet and look for a way to address the issue. Did they find anything of relevance over there? Unfortunately, they did not find a lot of reassuring things online. In fact, they came out even more worried about the situation. Well, this is normally what happens when you look for answers online. Chris and Marie felt even more anxious about the whole thing. Humans have a tendency to underestimate just how intelligent most animals actually are. When Mariasa and Chris started to look for answers, they found out why a dog might resist the delivery of her puppies. They even found a source that seemed to perfectly describe what was happening. What did they learn? Research showed that animals often experience a lot of stress and even trauma when they live in rescue shelters. Of course, pregnant dogs are more vulnerable to this. While shelters have the intention of helping animals in need, they get crowded quickly. A crowded place is not the best environment for a pregnant dog. A loving home such as Chris and Mariasa's can make a big difference. Chris and Mariasa started to read up about the matter some more and realized things could escalate further. There was a possibility that Story would lose her puppies. Not only that, but she might also lose her life. They certainly had no idea how bad things were. Can you believe that this is not all? Mariasa found out that pregnant dogs experiencing trauma get so worried about the pups that they could choose to refuse delivery completely. This situation happens since they are under the impression that the babies would be at risk. Chris and Mariasa were able to tell that this was a precarious situation. They had to bring the pregnant pooch to the vet as soon as they could. This was important if they wanted to ensure the safety of the babies. They popped back in the car and drove to the nearest vet. The vet conducted an ultrasound scan on the dog, but she saw unbelievable results. She shook her head. How could this even be possible? There must have been some kind of mistake, one way or another. However, nothing about the results changed or disappeared, not the shapes nor the numbers. It was true. What she saw there would change things for the couple and the others involved. Then, Mary Asa picked up on the fact that something was not right. What was it now? The veterinarian took a deep breath before she delivered the news. She went into an explanation of the abnormality she found in Story's womb. They had been expecting to see 6 puppies, but this did not align with the ultrasound results. The vet pointed to the outlines and then counted them for the couple. Chris and Mary Asa then figured out what was happening. They were now in shock as well. They were told that Story would have 6 puppies, but the ultrasound revealed that this was not true. What exactly was going on? The vet did not expect this either. She tried to count again. After this, she gave it another round. The results were always the same. At last, she figured out there was no choice but to tell them what it was. Chris and Mary Asa had been expecting 6 puppies, but the vet knew this was wrong. The pregnant dog was carrying not 6 puppies, but 12. Yes, that is twice the number of dogs they were expecting. At any rate, Story had 12 puppies in her womb. How were they going to solve this mess? The lovebirds could not believe what they just heard. How could this happen? 6 dogs already sounded like too much, but 12? Clearly, the problem was even more serious than they originally thought. Was Story going to be okay? Was she going to deliver all 12 of her babies? Let us find out. Even the vet had no idea why Story had yet to give birth to her large litter of puppies. At the very least, the ultrasound showed her that the puppies were all fine. What a relief! What was next for them? The vet said that the best thing they could do was head home and get ready for the birth. If Story still had not given birth after 48 hours, they should return for yet another examination. Chris and Mary Asa did not know it at the time, but Story actually had a great reason to wait. You can probably imagine how stressed Chris and Mary Asa had been at that moment. Story was not only in danger of losing 6 babies, but a dozen of these babies. They could not help but feel anxious about the following 48 hours. Was Story going to be all right if she failed to deliver the pups in that time frame? It is easy to see that this was a dangerous and terrible situation at the same time. However, there seemed to be nothing they could do for Story. The only thing left to do was make her feel at home. When they went home, Mary Asa came up with a clever plan. By that point, Chris and Mary Asa already went through a lot of articles about trauma and stress. They knew how hard things have been on Story. They tried to help her by giving her a very inviting space. Mary Asa chose a spot in a spare bedroom. She even placed pillows and blankets for the dog. After that, they showed Story her new sanctuary and prayed for the best. Chris and Mary Asa gave it their all because they wanted to make it just right for the pooch. They even kept track of the room temperature and noise level in there. The couple did not know that something incredible was going to happen there. The two of them headed off to bed for the night and then went to see how Story was doing upon waking up. They wanted to see if she was feeling better and more comfortable. As Mary Asa and Chris headed to the room where they left the pit bull, they could hear some curious noises. They hurried and entered the bedroom. They did not expect to see what they laid their eyes on. They entered the spare bedroom. Much to their delight, they found Story in there with her 12 adorable puppies. She was able to deliver them all while the two of them slept. What an incredible sight it was. Mary Asa and Chris were reduced to tears by what they saw. Who would have thought Story was finally going to deliver the pups? They were thrilled. Soon enough, they learned just why she waited so long. When dogs give birth to puppies at the shelter, it often becomes stressful for both the mom and babies. Story was somehow aware that the shelter was not a good place for anyone to give birth in an environment like that one. This is the reason she decided to wait for someone like Chris and Mary Asa. Isn't it incredible that Story only had to spend one whole day, even less, with Chris and Mariasa to feel comfortable around them? She was so at home she even delivered her litter of puppies. What made it even more special was the fact that no one understands what was going on. Good job, Story. Story was great when it came to looking after the puppies. Well, what else did you expect from the best dog mother in the entire world? It did not take long before people started to file adoption cases for the dogs. The couple already knew that they would not get to keep the puppies for a long time. Was Story going to be okay with letting the puppies go? After several weeks, the puppies finally opened their eyes. Mariasa and Chris had been enjoying the time they had with the litter of puppies. The babies took over the yard and goofed around with one another. You know what puppies are like. Story was happy to have all of her pups with her. Sadly, the time came for them to say goodbye. When Story was taken to a good and secure environment, she was able to let her body do the work and deliver the puppies. This was how she got to welcome the puppies, all 12 of them. However, what was next for her and the babies? Let us find out. It seems like Story knew just what she needed to give birth to her babies. All she wanted was the feeling of protection and security. The foster couple managed to give her these things, which was how she birthed her 12 strong puppies. She sure is one smart dog. It is impressive to hear that they managed to find foster parents willing to adopt the puppies when they were 10 weeks old. Chris and Mariasa might have adored the babies, but they simply did not have the means to keep them. They had to give them up for adoption, sadly. It was a heartbreaking moment, but it was the right thing to do. When they were 10 weeks old, the puppies were brought to their new homes. We're glad to hear that, but what would become of Story? The puppies were all in good hands now, but what about their mother? After risking her life for her children, this wonderful mother deserves only the best. It is not all that surprising to hear that the story went viral when it was posted on Facebook. The inspiring story of Story reached someone who fell in love with her right away. This man then contacted Chris and Mariasa to schedule an appointment. He wanted to meet this lovely dog and then see from there. What did he have to say? He ended up loving Story even more and decided to take her with him. Story has, at long last, made her way to her forever home. She and the rest of the puppies were then taken to their amazing homes. Not only that, but she also got spayed to prevent any more massive pregnancies. Let us hope she never has to go through anything like that ever again. Even though Story gave birth to a large number of puppies, she still remembered to give them the attention and love they deserved. When she was still with them, she was the image of a perfect mom. Aren't you excited to hear such a lovely thing? Chris and Mariasa were both happy and proud to see Story accomplish such a big feat. She even cleaned and nursed the puppies while she waited for them to reach a good health status. Sadly, the couple did not have much more time with them. The 12 pups all went to loving houses they now get to call their forever homes. They are glad this is the case because they will never run out of love and affection now. Story stayed with Chris and Mariasa until each of the puppies was taken. Her maternal instincts are still as bright as can be. If Mariasa and Chris failed to take a chance on her, some very terrible things would have happened to her and the babies. We are happy that they took a chance on the incredibly pregnant dog they found in the crowded animal shelter. Otherwise, things would have gotten a much sadder ending. Phew. Even though the story of Story had a happily ever after, there are so many dogs out there who will never get to find a forever home. Shelters typically need plenty of help to take good care of the animals. If you are unable to foster a dog for some reason, you can do more by checking out your other options. Of course, it is always a good idea to take in a new dog if you can. However, you can opt to donate money or spread the word about the shelter or rescue home. These might sound like little things, but they will go a long way to help the people who work in the shelters. Mariasa and Chris are the founders of a nonprofit organization that looks after elderly and sick dogs. It is called the Mr. Mo Project. The dogs that fall under these categories have a high risk of euthanasia, so the couple wants to look for places they could call their forever homes. The project also takes care of medical and living expenses. The hospice homes, meanwhile, provide care and love. If you can adopt or foster dogs, you should always keep this story in mind. There is no need to fret if you do not think you have enough bed space for all the dogs you want to adopt. Should that ever happen, try to follow in the footsteps of Mariasa and Chris. Although the average king bed measures 6.6 feet long, theirs is nearly double that. This is an option you might want to consider. By this point, you should know better than anyone how much Mariasa and Chris love dogs.